Welcome to Elite 6 Think Tank, an open discussion group with business owners who share their knowledge, experience and skills. So just to explain how it works in case you've forgotten, I've got 3 balls, and if you want to speak, put your hand up, we'll give you a ball. If you speak too long, I'll probably come up and pry the ball out of your hand. And if you have one of the balls, please make it visible so I can see it, and we'll get started. So last week we talked about the topic called risk management, and I gave an example of one guy who decided that he was going to get himself in the hospitality industry, and he bought himself a bar. He did have to pay for it for 12 months, but because of his experience he thought he could turn the bar around, make it a profit and pay the person's bill at the end. And then all of a sudden he found out he couldn't do it, so he went and bought another bar with the same theory and the same idea, couldn't turn that bar around, so then he went and bought another bar. And at the end of it, he was $400,000 in the red, and then he went bankrupt. And I knew 2 people that were personally affected by only small amounts, but the question really is that an acceptable way to start up a business? What sort of risk do you take when starting up a business, and should you use your money or somebody else's money, and where's the ethics and all that? Because then I want to start with that. We'll go, Sean.
I got a question. Like, he got a $400,000 loans, right, from the bank?
No, he basically used everyone else's money on tick, got credit applications. One of the guys was a painter and a decorator, went in and painted one of the bars, he didn't get paid. Another guy was a supplier of orange juice, and he was $15,000 in the red, and he didn't get paid either. And the guy basically said he gave it a go, and I don't think that's the way to start off a business. $400,000, not $400.
$400,000. Yeah. So if I'm the bank, I won't really lend the money to him, and he only owns the money for other contractors, right?
Yeah, he used other people who were hopeful that he was going to. Well, they didn't know his financial position, but basically he would feel quite comfortable ringing up somebody and saying, "Look, I've got a job for you. Can you come and paint my bar?" And then they would do that, and then he would say, "Look, I'll try to get some money and pay you when I get the money."
Okay. So I put my shoes into the people who actually learned money from him, because previously I did P2P for more like learn money for someone else. But before doing that, we have to make sure we are the secondary mortgagees for but we need to know he has properties. The properties can be sold and then covered by some of the mortgage loans, and then besides, the money is enough for us. So we got some protections. I don't really understand why those 3 or 4 businessmen, including the juice guy and the painter and decorators, doesn't really check his ability to paying back the debt.
That's probably a really good point, actually.
I don't really understand.
Yep.
Why they don't do that?
It's part of risk management.
It is part of risk management, but part of the problem is, as humans, we like to believe what we're being told. The other part of the problem is, it is way too easy. We used to have a supplier that was called something, and they liquidated, put a "the" in front of their name, and were back trading. And of course, if you search the name with "the" in it, it doesn't come up with all the history of all the old company. I also saw that tradie out and about in a new car the other day with new graphics on it so it used to have the word complete in it. Now it's changed, it's exactly the same, the graphics are all the same, but that word complete has changed to total. So actually I didn't lose any money out of it, but the original thing was about 10 years ago, put the "that" in front of his name about 7 years ago, and recently he's obviously changed it again. So there's now a 3rd company that he's been able to run with actually no history.
So these companies obviously don't really care about the risk, and they can sleep at night,
It's
and
the
they just think
directives.
they think that's business.
It's the director, not the company.
Of course. It was a ball moment.
In the 1980s, in harness racing, there was a company came along and imported American horses. And if you breed to an American horse, you're able to enter in all these races. And if you won them, you got extra money over and above the amount that you won because you went to the American horse. And what they assumed is that there would be any absolutely amazing horse arrive along out of these American horses, and there was. And then the next year, there was again, and then the year after, horse went boom, 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 and won $1 million in extra payments, and it actually destroyed the business. That night, the next morning, it had opened up under another name. And there's two ways to look at this. There's the way that if you're on the wrong end of that, it's going to cost you money. If you're on the other end, it actually protects you. The laws are out there to encourage everybody, to operate, and you just have to assume that everybody's operating in an ethical way. And it's not necessary. I think you do, but you have to manage the belief of the ethics of other people, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So just what we're really discussing, we've got 4 points. We talk about the experiences, the solutions, the problems, and then hopefully we'll have some takeaways from today. But so far people's experiences were risk takers. Any more examples of those type of people that you've heard take amazing risks, or did they get the reward?
Well,
That's Renee, just tuning up now for the meeting.
Yeah, I've got a young client down south, Danny, and I worked in the business field. This is a farm. He's 37. His debt's only, it's about 50 million. He's a risk taker. The timing has been impeccable getting onto the risk machine. So he's acquired land over land over land. Rubber bank are backing him. He's got cash flow. Interest rates are low. Dairying. There's several farms. So at the moment, all planets are lined up perfectly for him. So there's no issues. But it's when something goes wrong, as it did 3 years ago when the schedule dropped from $8 a kilogram to $4 a kilogram milk solids, that really impacted. So that's a fear that's out there at the moment. That's why the banks, from Aussie banks, all of them, are, putting the squeeze on a lot of the copies. But one of the things with risk is that I had an inquiry from Auckland 2 weeks ago, and they just asked me to look at it. We're all self-employed, and it's ACC, and I can tell you now, the account is paying just on $2,900 in ACC for the 2 directors. They're on the right code, so there's no problems there. Everything is fine, but they're on ACC. They take money from the company to themselves with PAYE. And the company will continue to credit. There's a dozen staff. The company, $2 million turnover, so it's a small company. The company will keep turning over, so they will not be able to prove loss. So at the moment, what they've got from ACC is null and void. They won't get a cent if they go and claim. They will not get a cent because you cannot prove loss. I had a farm company of farm accountants here in town about 5 years ago. They had seven farmers that had nil claims. They've been paying premiums, nil. And one of them actually had to pay $11,000 back. Because the farm, incorrectly so, he was on the wrong code. No, not the wrong code, he was on ACC Cover Plus. And that's such a simple exercise when you're minimising risk for the key people.
I'm thinking of what comes to mind with risk is these people when the houses they were buying, like they'd buy up 10 houses, use the equity in one, and then get another one, use the equity in that, get another one, and all of a sudden they were so tight to the wall that something changed, and all of a sudden everyone was feeling sorry for these people that couldn't afford to sell their houses. But is that the sort of
It's okay, because actually at the end of the day the only thing they're risking is their own life.
for banks, really, isn't it?
Well, stuff the banks, that's what they're there for. They get paid for that, don't they?
They should calculate the risk.
Well, they have
They
insurance
have,
for the,
yeah,
for the money.
exactly.
No,
So
they
the,
don't really.
the thing we're talking about here is when the decision that you make in your own life affects the other people around you.
I'd actually like to go back to Sean, who didn't quite understand it. If I'm a painter and a decorator and I'm going to go along with for Sam, how do I know Sam's going to pay me?
Yeah.
And Sam says, oh, no, we'll pay you, we've got lots of money coming in. And then I go, I'll take him on his word. Sam's a good fella, but at the end of the day, I'm waiting 3 months for my payment, and then I realise that money is I'm not going to get paid. So how could I don't know how to say the word, admit it? What's the word?
Mitigate.
Risk. Like, how could I get a better relationship with Sam? Do I make sure he's got money by charging him half the money before I even start? And if Sam says, no, I can't do that, then
Well,
back
then you
off.
know there's a problem.
Or you do it in installments,
Then
progress
we'll-
payments.
Right, so you've got a ball?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm just wondering, like, how many of us in this room do business with the person rather than business with the business? Because what you were saying is that how can people get into such debt? And it's part of risk management is we tend to look at the person that we're dealing with before we look at the business that we're dealing with and how they operate. So for example, my partner and I were involved with a gentleman that we knew for 2 years prior. We'd had lots of dealings with him, went into business with him, then things turned to custard, and after a while my partner had a meeting with him and found out that he'd been discharged, he spent time on home detention with an ankle bracelet for tax evasion. And when my partner said to him, I didn't know, he goes, why didn't you tell me? And the guy's remark back was, you didn't effing ask. So, how many of us do business with the person rather than looking at the business like, just exactly like you're saying, how can these people continue to get debt? And it's potentially because they're a good talker and we're not researching the business, we're looking at that person.
Quite like that. Right. David, and then the wise man here, and then third wise man.
Yeah, one of the things that we're very good at is we should be good at, is checking that the people that we take on as clients can in fact pay. In other words, do you consistently get a credit check on people who want to be a client and ensure that they are reliable risks for you? Because if you don't and they fail, in other words, you lose literally off your bottom line the investment that you have in them, then that's your fault, as far as I'm concerned.
It's my fault.
Yeah, that's right. The interesting thing for me is, though, let's just think about it. If you're in a business and you have a key supplier who's supplying you, who's an integral part of your business, literally, he's got almost as much invested as you. If you've got that person who's one of your suppliers, do you actually go and get a credit check on him or her or that business? It's a very sensible thing to do, because if they fall over, you can well fall over as well. So minimise your risk by checking both your debtors and your key creditors.
Yeah, but I don't want people asking me for a credit check because that's my privacy. That's what they might say.
If you're in,
Once you
in
check
business,
credit
if you're in
card-
business, part of the cost of being in business is in fact you lose your privacy around your creditors.
It's a flag.
Yeah.
Everything that credit check score will be go under if you keep checking it, right?
Have you got a ball? Just behave yourself. Just get expelled from that. You had a ball, and you've got one, so he was first, and then so you, and then you. The you, make it good.
Okay, so the first thing is our invoice is composed of two parts, and that is the expense to provide the product and the markup or the profit over the top of it. So if we're not paid, we're not actually going to lose the whole amount of the invoice. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, right, we have a want to get work, and if we were to have a look realistically at how we're charging or invoicing, you know, like we may change the way that we do it. I ended up with a big training job which was going to cost me a lot of money up front to do, so I asked to have, you know, like the money. I asked up front because I was confident the answer was yes, but I asked up front as well because I thought if the answer is no, I don't actually want to actually deliver the training. So why do we not ask up front?
Okay. In?
Just following on what David was coming from, linked to looking at credit checks and things like that. When you're going into business, obviously as a director, when you team up, or as an example, you know, you're jointly severally liable. And the classic example, we're talking 20 years ago, a person joined the company, he came up with 500,000 and he was a director as well. There was a sleeper that had put money in, and there were the original ones. The fast track, 18 months later, the whole thing went tipped up, imploded. The two original guys had all their assets locked in trusts. The third person was limited to 150,000. This other guy, fortunately, he had just put his house as tenants in common. He lost the 150, the 500, and he lost 750 on the house when they forced him to sell the house. So the thing is that just be very, very careful when you're going into business as someone, or we're just saying here, is that do the credit checks and things like that. And remember, personal guarantees, make sure there's none left behind. You know, I mean, I'm older than most people here. Maybe David, you've got me by a couple of months. But the thing is that you'd be amazed what personal guarantees are still here. We talked about it the other day. Yeah, so the thing is, just the way that they follow you after you're dead. They don't just disappear because you're in a box.
So is that what we're talking about here? We're talking about people's experiences, and we're doing all right in time. We have Sam, and then Renee. So we do normally do ladies first, but
Quantifying a bit of what David and Kay said. The other thing about your due diligence is actually listen to your lawyer. If you've got a distribution agreement or something like that you're working with, go and get it checked, and if he or she says to put a certain clause in that means that you can get out if the head office isn't performing, well then actually put it in. It's a good advice. Very good advice.
we had an experience with that the other day. Somebody else said, make sure you get advice. Doesn't want to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And she did listen to a lawyer. She worked for this company for 10 weeks, didn't receive any money, and the agreement was never signed. And now she's like, what do I do? I said, should have listened to a lawyer.
Yeah.
Renee, sorry.
Great shirt, Chris. Love it. Yeah, it's nice.
Just note there for the record, Chris is wearing a lovely shirt.
Yeah. Very important. I'm
Chris,
not
put
sure
it back on, Chris.
Can we try it on too?
I'm not sure if you mentioned, but before I have a meeting with a client, I Google them. And if there's a significant conviction against that person's name, you'll find that on Google. and so I'll hit them up about it. And you know, sometimes I have one client that I'll give it a second chance to, and it's worked out fine. But Google normally tells you anything you need to know as far as if there's anything dodgy about that person. Probably not Kay though, because you hide you as well.
Didn't work with me.
Different dodgy. And then I also work out, I've got a calculation that I work out as to how much a job's worth to a person, and various other things to work out how much a lead would be worth to them through a digital purpose, and if it's going to deliver them a return on investment. And if it comes under anything that I would recommend, then I say no, let's not do business. So sort of work out whether it's worth it or not at the start as well. But that's the two key things that I do.
So don't underestimate researching your client. Now, Sean, are you talking? Oh no, we've got Leon. Sorry, you're playing on your phone.
Just to touch on the payment up front piece, subscription models is, I believe, the way of the future. So, well, for a lot of industries, and so I try to transition any of my legacy payment style customers into, for example, credit card or direct debit, and so I ensure that cash flow, and that's reduced my age debtors significantly. I used to sit with any one couple of months upwards of 100,000 on age debt and have to chase it, and it's a massive saving time to move. You know, people who are not paying for the reason of they forgot, and you know, it's only a few $100 here or a few $100 there, and it adds up across the business, right? Like you can't let the small fish go on for too long. So yeah, transitioning, and the couple of percent or the whatever percent I lose on a credit card transaction is easily paid back in my time saved.
I have to agree with that. I mean, if I charge you guys $7 or $8 in one hit, and you've got 3 or 4 months behind it, then you know it's harder. But if I charge you $59 a month, then I can keep track of people who are getting behind, you know, as you do sometimes, and I can always sort of tell the ones that are struggling. Anyway, you know what I mean? Where we're at, we're Sean now.
If we actually have that many transactions, so it's actually quite hard to be tracked if we have some sort of like, I don't know whether or not then you have the system tracking all the people's, all the payments individually, manually by yourself, or by an app or a system.
Yeah, I do, yeah. You can click a button on my system and see who's overdue, and also how if it goes red, then I know that they're behind the due date.
It's pretty much like what the Xero does, right?
So yeah, I don't use Xero for that.
Okay. So for my problem is there are so many people in the beginnings. You don't really have it's quite a cost. Too many costs for getting to know the business first, and then to deal with it. No matter what you deal with the person or deal with the business, you have to check investment in first, and then you make the decisions. You have to check the credit. So if you imagine it's only about $100 job or a couple $100 job, not really even reach $1,000, how come you spend your money? I mean, spend your time into to investigating that person? You don't really have the opportunity cost is too high. You don't really have the time to do it.
How much of your business is like regularly, like an office or something like that, and how much is Joe Blogs getting something done at their house?
For individual clients, they may come out once a year or twice a year, so they come regularly back. But for those clients, I'm alright. But for new clients, they walk in, and then they say that's been introduced by someone and someone else. We deal with business with them, but we don't really have time to check them. We don't really have time to check the credit checks.
But if I'm coming into you and I've been referred by someone and I say, can you come to my house for a one-off job, and yes, I might be back next year, how are you charging me? Are you invoicing me, or are you getting out your credit card machine and going, oh, pay up?
Well, we kind of like use both.
Because he's trying to save 3%.
They try.
No, that's what most people say.
But
that,
even
yeah.
half the time, it's not because I'm going to use a credit card. I'm going to use my EFTPOS machine, and I'm just going to
Yes.
swipe it because
What
then
I
it's
can
done.
do is I will provide all I can provide it to them. Say it's like I will sending them out invoices. I will collecting the information like including full name, cell phone number, and the email address and the address and
No,
things
maybe
like
that you
that.
come to my house, you do a bug kill, and I pay you on the spot, and then you
Yeah.
don't get the problem.
You may be surprised. I used to have a EFTPOS machine, and 80% of the transactions were EFTPOS, not credit
Yeah.
card. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was surprised by that.
But even if you are paying 2%, as you say, who cares? You've got
So
your
what
money
have you got the
today,
money
and
for?
not in 40 days.
EFTPOS is free. It doesn't cost you
Yeah,
anything.
no, that's
No,
what
no, it's nothing regarding that. Regarding insurance questions, actually is not really. Maybe 50% of the people will meet me in the front of the house, but for another 50%, they will just not showing up because they just leave the key there.
Yeah. But at least if you've got 50% that are paying you before you walk
Yeah,
out.
Maybe your terms and conditions could have a credit card on file. They can pay other means, but if the invoice is not paid within 7 days, then you would use the credit card on file to do the transactions.
No,
Now,
I was not able to do that. Previously, the ANZ Bank can give us the opportunity to do that, but now they only accept the card in front of you rather than the manually transactions or whatever.
Yeah. All right, we'll just go to Chris. I think I'll know Ashley. Ashley?
Mine's very simple and straightforward, but it took me a long time to get my head around the idea of talking about money comfortably with people. I think people, or in my profession where a lot of it is one-on-one client consulting, being able to just comfortably bring up the topic pretty much as you're introducing the service that you give, and being able to confidently talk about money. And I think for me, I was always thinking, am I too expensive? What are they going to think of how much I charge? And then realizing that to some people $200 is a lot of money, and to other people $200 is not that much at all. So you can't make the assumption about people, what they think about how much you charge in your services. And the other thing is always having a paper trail, which again is self-explanatory, but it's always being able to follow up with everything that you've talked about and discussed, and especially with those people who are great talkers as well, and clarifying everything that you want to get across so that you don't get caught out, because I have many times.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
I think don't get these bills. The days of giving somebody a $10,000 bill hoping they pay it is interesting. Sorry, Chris.
There's a lot of conversation around risk and money, and I think risk in business is a lot more than just necessarily getting paid. There's a lot of risk with having staff and IP being stolen, processes that you worked on being taken, just staff themselves. If you're relying on staff and then they get hit by a bus, have you got the right procedures and things in place in your business to handle that kind of risk? Because it can sink a lot of companies where they might be reliant so much on someone without realising, and then boom, and no one knows what the hell that person did or how they did it.
Can
And
we
they
actually
scramble.
change the focus? Because what you said I thought was better than talking about money. We all want to be paid. But this morning we had a guy come along, and he owns a gym out in Rangura, Paul Blackburn, and he said he's just finally got the awesome staff and the whole business. He says he's got rid of a whole lot of people on the bus he didn't need. And I said, have you come up with a system for looking after your staff and making sure that every 3 months you don't forget and do something nice for your staff? Because like you just said, there's more than just being paid risk in a business. So maybe we can discuss other types of risks that come up in a business. You guys are a risk to me. Because if you guys don't turn up here, that's a risky business for me to be in.
I think it's key to look at your business and go, what process. You don't necessarily have to know every single detail of how everything works, because we can't. Because I don't know every detail of accounting, but you have to have an understanding as a business owner about the various aspects. So if something does happen with a staff member or a system, then at least you've got some understanding of what the hell that thing did and how you got there. So you've got to mitigate it, but you've got to set your own terms. And in our business, we were super flexible with customers and processes on trying to help others, and we got bitten and burnt a number of times, and we came to the realization that actually it's our business, it's our terms, it's how we want to operate, and that's not just with the customers, it's also with the staff, and it's with how we interact with our suppliers. This is our business, this is how we want to operate, and we need to stick to that. And if people want to do a business with us, then these are our terms, and if you don't want to accept these terms, then you're not the right fit for us and our company. And because we've done the whole flexible angle with staff and with customers and being burnt because we're trying to accommodate other people, which has then put us at risk. And to mitigate our risk, we put things in place to say, well, this is the way we operate, and if you don't like that, then this is not going to be a fit for us. And we say that to staff quite regularly when they come and start with us. It's like, this is the way we work. You won't have access to passwords, they're all encrypted. And if you don't like that and you want to start storing passwords unencrypted, well, that's not going to work for us. So it's probably not going to be a fit. You've got to be strong enough to actually say, this is the way I want to operate to reduce my risk. Be willing to work with the client, but still you've got to reduce your risk, otherwise you get totally exposed.
I just see another side of that too. The customer comes to you with a few $1,000s and they want to do some website or something. What's their risk using your services?
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Kate.
So I've just got, I'm using a call centre based overseas to do a lot of outbound calling for my business. And one of the questions that I had for them is, because my business is online and it's selling supplements, the potential is that they're going to get phone calls and they're going to have to take credit card details from people. And I know how I'm dealing with taking customers' credit cards. But the question that I had for them is, what sort of risk management process do you have in place so that these credit card details can't be used if they're writing them down? And they said, we don't allow any pens or any paper on our desks. It's part of the requirement that when they work here, no pens, no papers. They're not even allowed to bring sort of their bags to their desk or anything like that. And I thought, my God, one, I wouldn't cope because I like my pen and paper to make notes as I go, but maybe that's old school now.
So you're telling me the people that commit fraud on the internet have got really good memories?
No, I mean, it's not foolproof, you know, but I just thought it's a way because, you know, for some old people, they'll give you their credit card details over the phone 3 or 4 times, and you've actually physically got to write it down or type it out somewhere because then transposing numbers, or a 6 looks like a 9 or whatever. But it's not foolproof, but I thought, hey, that's enough for me to know.
It's about shrinking that risk, isn't it?
But the fact that they had an answer as well tells you what sort of company they are.
Yeah.
So
anybody else would have gone, oh.
So I have online shops. They had 3 orders last night between 1 and 6 a.m. Straight away, I'm thinking, and they're from overseas. So then I'm thinking, no, that's cool. I'd like to be in the overseas market. But then 2 of them had flagged for high risk. 2 of them are from the same country, within 5 minutes of each other, and they both had different credit card numbers in different streets. So I could just sort of tell straight away. But I could be like a bit foolish and think, could I really want the money? And then process those orders, and then the credit cards get declined, you know. You know, but you just got to use a bit of not stupidity. What's the other word for stupidity? Now, Rob.
Yeah, the last few weeks that I turn up here and I go elsewhere, I think that the processes that we operate, if we have any, and that's the big question, if we have any, are vitally important. Because if I got injured or was in hospital or whatever, could anybody walk in, that can operate my business? The answer is no. If any of us, get injured, or hurt anywhere else, is anybody able to walk into your place of work and do what you do? The answer is probably no. Massive risk if that happens. And a couple of weeks ago, we had, in an organisation I was in, a meeting. And there were 4 people tasked to run the meeting, organise the meeting. 1 person organised it, they took over. And I realised the morning of the meeting, I thought, if this guy doesn't turn up, nobody in this room knows what to do.
Pretty profound. We've got David Clarkson.
Yeah, I just, talking to what Rob was saying, and I don't know whether you are all aware, but we have in Elite 6 one of our members, and her sole function in life is to, in actual fact, codify procedures in companies. And she will come in and she will actually put all your procedures down on paper so that you've got something there, and if you want somebody to come in as a result of somebody, one of the staff members going or something or other like that, then it's all there, it's ready to go, and you cover that risk in time. That's just that's an advertisement.
Yeah, well, that'd be systems and processes and that risk, I suppose. Who's got the ball? That Chris guy.
So one of the things where you look at as
With
well,
a nice
risk,
shirt.
thanks, mate,
Yeah.
is the future. Like when we finish a project, we always go, there's some key things, so we run a code check to see if there's security concerns within the code that's been written. We run then speed tests, so there's a baseline performance against the software that we run, and they're purely for internal risk management, so that we can say at any point in the future, if a client comes back to us and says, oh, you know, I've been hacked and it's due to your code, or my software is not performing well, it's due to you, we can actually say, well, here's the reports. When we delivered the project, it's an A level security and it's got this performance, and we don't know what you've done since we've delivered that project to you. And it just is a way of mitigating risk in the future. And it doesn't take all but 5 minutes because there's tools out there to do that. But you've got to think ahead, not just today, in terms of like you're saying before, personal guarantees in the future and things. You might have a long-term relationship with that customer, or you might not, but they might still come back in 2 years' time and they could be 3 times the size they were when you were dealing with them. What is your risk from when you were engaged with them? Are you covered? Have you got that paper trail that Ashley was saying in place about the conversations and what you were due to deliver and the scope of the work that you're working on before them and the service that you're providing?
Anyone ever used public liability insurance?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Ever used it though?
No.
I wonder if it did. Yeah, Sam?
Once when I stepped into a painting, and I was selling advertising to a little shop up in a picture framing shop up in Picton, and accidentally stepped back and put my foot through a painting.
Wow. And it worked? They pay out?
Oh yeah.
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 Was it a artist?
It was a and it is my favourite artist now, but it was a Tom Heston painting.
You were in one of his pictures, right?
Really? No. Yeah, it was a Tom Heston painting, and because of doing that, I realised, wow, this guy is a really nice painting, and he's my favourite artist.
You wanted to be in it?
No, you can't get in his paintings, they're all European ones, but yeah, it was.
You were in his painting?
At the time, I was literally. At the time, it was probably about a $7,000 painting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you get to keep it?
No, unfortunately not.
That's right.
Because when they bring it out and do my public liability, they said, "What do you do for work?" And I go, "Well, I do a whole array of things. You know, it's quite a hard one to have a sort of a blanket cover on it, really." So yeah, I talk a lot. So apparently, I'm not allowed to tell you guys to jump up a cliff. And if you do, I'm liable. I got insurance, so yeah.
But from that
That's
point, I wasn't.
I do care.
The insurance company said to not go behind the scenes, stay in the front of house.
Huh? What? Yes. Sorry, I was trying to unrecord something. Ian, insurance man.
Well, it's not so much that, it's just what Sam's saying, is that setting up a business, and last week came up getting good advice from an accountant. I think Sam just talked to, a lawyer, that's all part of the cost of business. Public liability, professional indemnity cover, it's part of the business.
But what are the necessities of a business? I think that'd be a good topic. Because when you start out, like for me it was $300 in my bank account, and I hitchhiked around to get some work.
Yes,
So
you
I
had
didn't
a
have
vision,
liability.
you had your skill base, you had a vision, and you had you had a plan of how you're getting there.
So I go get on the client's computer and I do something, I blow up their computer and I go, sorry, I just started out.
Well, that's mean you're leaving. Well,
Probably could have got away with that
just
30 years ago, but you wouldn't get away with it now.
Yeah. So there's been a shift in that sort of stuff. What about if you're starting up a lawnmower around and you don't have any tools? You're covering yourself for what could potentially go
the
wrong.
cost of buying a lawnmower, isn't it? Was a
No.
cost.
I used to knock on their doors and tell them I had a lawnmower around.
Okay, that's fine.
And then they'd say, how much do you charge? I'd say $10 an hour. And they'd say, that's fair. And then they'd say, yeah, okay, you can mow my lawns. And I said, can I borrow your lawnmower?
That's right. And the thing is that that's the risk they had. Well, you had to get paid, but
Yeah.
also if something went wrong on the lawnmower,
Yeah,
hit
I
a
filled it
stone
up-
and
I
put
filled it up
through
with
there,
water
you-
instead of
you
petrol.
walked away from it. That's a risk they took. Yeah, so there's a plus and minus.
So can you move the risk? Can you say, well, I don't all care, no responsibility. Now do we do business with me? Or do you have that audacity to get away with it until you get everything in order? You know what I mean? And in what industries is that totally unacceptable? I want to start up a service station and just start pumping fuel. I don't need to get liability insurance, I'll just wing it until I make it.
Not possible.
But that
No,
comes
it's
back
just-
to the
yeah.
very original subject. You know, we've got cleaners that come in and see us, and I'll say, "Where's your insurance?" And they say, "Well, I haven't got anything because it's so expensive." And I'll say, "Well, go away," because I'm not taking on their risk that they burn a house down and it's going to come back on me.
I reckon you definitely have to ask. I like Leon's comment about subscription-based business. I have people trying to sell websites for $4,000 or $5,000, and I go, well, why don't you just do it different? I know Renee's company has a setup fee, and then you pay quite a higher monthly fee than most people would think, but that means that you, in 2 or 3 years' time, you don't need to upgrade your website again. It's all part of the package. So now you're spreading that out, but at the end of the day, they could say, well, actually, we're going to charge you $5,000 or $10,000 for a website. Hosting's only going to be $10 a month. And in 3 years' time, I'm going to charge another $5,000 or $10,000 to do it all over again. But instead of looking at that and thinking, well, we want to keep our clients happy, affordability, they can afford $150 a month, if it's that, and then they've eliminated, they've managed to repackage the same stuff in a different way that's more appealing and get the money eventually and keep the clients longer.
It's just talking about the risk, and I recall seeing a client before the earthquake, and they had a business, had the in the house. There were personal guarantees from the house to the business, and so we looked at that issue, then looked at the business, and the business was, we'll call it the ABC business. Do you have any assets in the business? Would you put shareholder capital in it, and like that? And I think it was only like the computer, it was next to nothing. So we walked outside from the meeting, and he walked towards the vehicle, and it had signage all over it, what he's doing. I said, you just told me you had no assets in the company. Oh no, well, we own it. But I said, you've got signage over it. And I said, and then I just asked him, and I'm not a specialist in fire in general, but I was just, one of the questions that came up, I said, have you got that insured in the company's name or privately? He said, oh no, wife and I have it. He was driving around in a vehicle that was uninsured. And you think of the consequences of that, if it was he ran into the Mercedes, it was worth $100,000, tick, 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 back onto the family house.
Yep.
Yeah?
I
But
had
it was so simple. Yeah, but it was, yeah.
I had commercial insurance with AMI, and apparently they don't do commercial insurance. Somebody made a mistake until I had an accident. They hit my sign writing, and they said, "Oh, we don't actually cover people." And I go, "Well, listen to the phone call." And they had insured me for commercial insurance at the time. This was a few years ago. Anyone else? David Clarkson.
Yeah, just a comment. Back in the dim, dark, distant past when I was in the army, we used to have a phrase, and that was reinforce success, not failure. And I think a lot of the time we intensify the risk by actually trying to fix what's already failed.
Ambulance at the bottom of the cliff.
But that also comes back to what you were saying before about making sure you protect your staff and all the rest of it.
So where's this going? We've got some pretty good notes on there. Chris, you've done well with our mind map. Ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, experiences, takeaways. We've already got takeaways. How about that?
We've got people don't listen to expert advice, but I also think people sometimes take advice from people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yep.
And you end up getting rubbish advice and think, why did I listen to that person? You know, they totally didn't even know what they were talking about, or maybe it worked for one person, it didn't work for me.
Maybe it's family advice we should listen to sometimes, and take out emotion and feeling.
Jeez.
Yeah. So let's start up a virtual business. What's going to be called? I always wondered about the guy that's made toothpicks and how he's built a business out of selling toothpicks. If you were here saying toothpicks are in every cafe around the world, it's a multi-million-dollar business.
What about the guy who made the little things on the ends of your shoelaces to keep them tight?
My mate sells those, bricks.
That is the guy who patented that, multi-billionaire.
I mean, my mate struggles to sell them, but he does sell them.
The guy that came up with the road cones.
Post-it notes is another one.
Yeah, toilet paper.
Classic.
What's another business that's funny like that?
Bottled water.
I know a guy that does that in Ring Europe. He sells deer velvet as well, funny enough. But yeah, he's just got a bottling plant. There's some people who try to bottle ear.
Yeah,
They do.
There's
Well,
they
they sell
sell
it.
They do.
it in Australia. There's cafes selling oxygen in the Gold Coast. You sit down and put a mask on, and it's all different flavours.
China, you can buy a bottle that's full of New Zealand air.
Yes.
And
they are.
Canadian air, and I was actually thinking of sending a 20-foot container of air over there. Compressor, take it up to Arthur's Pass and compressor up there and fill it up. And
We are talking about risk management.
Well, how do these all funny companies get off the go? I mean, do they borrow other people's money? Do they are these social? What are they? Social enterprises? They're using other people's money, but they're some businesses aren't feasible. I always see them like the guy that tried to start the milk business locally.
But I mean, imagine going to your bank and saying, I want a can air and send it to China.
yeah,
But having the ability to sell that to someone that's given them some money to can air to sell.
Just
It's
maybe.
about identifying your market.
that's right.
Yeah,
You
but
go
how
there
do you
first,
target
get
market?
the
So
orders.
a bottle of
Yeah.
air is not that expensive.
You can pay for the bottle.
More expensive than the stuff I'm breathing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's an interesting thing. So what about people who have too much money starting up a business and causing disruption? I used to have a lot to do with rental car operators. And as soon as rental car operators could basically start up a company, all Hertz, Budget, Avis, and all those thrifties and all that, it really suffered a lot while all these disruptors come into it. And now these days, if you drive around the airport, you see Maui and all these big companies have survived, have got deep pockets, and a lot of the disruptor companies have actually been merged together. Now they're a big company. Apex Rentals, they're one of the ones that have really done well in the industry and maintained small business that's grown massive now and come up to the same as these mainframe companies. So so I always wondered where their money come from.
It was interesting on the radio this morning, the way they were talking about power companies. Yeah, the government's now going to investigate our power and why we pay so much for power. But they're talking about the top 5 power companies own 88% of the market. But there's about 20 players and other players in the market that offer cheaper power, but people don't use them. So why, and they were saying on the radio, why do people keep sticking with the top 5 when there's other options out there who only own 20% of the market but offer a far better value and service?
But hang on, the generators have to sell it to the power authority that then on sells it to everyone else, and half of the ones that are generating it are also the on sellers. So it all goes through the government anyway, so they're the ones that jack the price up.
There's a
A
new
lot,
business.
a lot of the new small ones are they're trading on the futures of power and things like that. Like, so they're pre-buying at a rate and everything. They're gambling.
They're taking risk.
Yeah, they are.
Well, there's a new company called yespower.nz, and they are basically going to be shopping for the cheapest power, and you sign up with them and they'll keep you informed.
There's no such thing as the cheapest power. It's all the same price. They buy all at the same price from the authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a middleman.
Who are you using?
Yeah, it's the government as the middleman.
Several middlemen.
No, there's only
It's
one.
wife you're
All the
using.
generators have to supply to the one
Genesis.
power authority.
Where's
So you
petrol
have
come from?
Exxon. Right.
Petrol comes from a different number of different places.
Comes from a planet.
Yeah.
There's only one planet. All right. That's pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, to answer, yeah.
What power company do you
I can
use?
tell by the
Yeah, what power company?
Bloody hell's that got to do with it? Genesis, and I was actually looking around the other day. I will answer that question actually, why people go to the top 5, because the government's deregulated power, but they didn't educate the people what that meant, which means you are buying on credibility of the brand name.
You're buying a risk. That less risk.
You're assuming you're buying and there is no risk if you're at a big name. And literally the other day I had a look online, like at the options for power, and there's all these no-name little businesses, and you have no idea who they are, and you have no idea if their description of cost savings is real, because you're not actually comparing apples with apples. And if the government, God, I get on my soapbox now, if the bloody government, Labor or anybody else wanted to do anything, they would have everybody charge the same rate or the same way, and then you could compare apples with apples. But if you go on to Genesis...
That's what I just said they are.
No, they're not.
The government is the one that sells it to all the retailers.
No.
At the same price.
I'm talking about the retailers package the power in unusual and unique ways, which means you can't just go on and go, well, that's the most expensive and that's the least.
Like saying the
marketing.
government should come along and say that you can only charge $50 an hour as with any other trainer.
Yeah, it's
No,
not
what I'm saying is that the government should say that everybody advertises a per hour rate, is what I'm saying.
Everybody advertises.
Yeah, if you got some
Advertise a per
got some
hour
fries
rate.
with that?
But that wasn't my comment. My comment was,
He's got more.
and I have
Had
the
the ball
ball.
for over a minute.
My comment is in terms of managing risk, I think most of us unthinkingly assume that the risk is the unforeseen expense to an existing business where it is established. But actually, the risk also involves, if we keep on doing what we're doing, do we risk not doing what we could be doing? Okay, right, the opportunity cost of doing what we're doing. And the one thing that I think is that if any business analyst walked into our businesses, can we quantify exactly what we do? Because if we can't quantify exactly what we do, that another person could see it, we can't see it, and so any decision that we make is not based on good data.
Interesting.
Yeah, what
Thank
can't
you,
be
Rob.
measured can't be managed.
Just we've got 5 minutes to go, and I just wanted to leave you with one bit of useless information that you'll go, oh really? Did you know why the yellow pages keep getting delivered in your mailbox when no one really uses it?
Because they don't listen to it when you tell them you don't want it anymore.
No, they do. They have to.
Well, they friggin' don't.
You tell them that.
What?
It's because
It's
it's
much more
illegal.
smaller. You don't imagine, I remember about the
Oi,
10
oi,
years ago.
oi, hey, it's getting smaller. Do you know why they keep delivering the small yellow pages every year religiously?
No.
It's a legal requirement. Found that out this week. Because when they privatised the yellow pages, the government put it into legal, what's that word?
Legislation.
Thank you. They must keep delivering the yellow pages to around the houses. So yeah, it's a bit of useless information, but when you get it, it's a legal requirement. I would like to have some takeaways for today, just a couple. Who's got anything out, any risk management? I don't know, where did that go? Because I don't feel we had some really good points
I think
there.
risk-
I don't need
risk
the ball,
management.
just the end.
My late accountant always said, cash is king, and the thing is, we're all looking at is the bottom line. So if there's a saving here or a saving there, look at it and identify where you're spending money, and if it's good value. And I'll go back to that ACC. You know what I mean? It's here's a client spending 2.8. I've suggested spending 3.8, and they're going to get 3 times the cover.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
so
an Auckland crowd.
So we thought about it when you're setting up a business. The necessities of running a business could be one thing. These days, maybe I can't get $300 in my bank account, hitchhike around and start up a business, or can I? It's different, isn't it? So there must be a cost to starting up a business.
It's the cost of business. So I'll sit over here.
Yeah, and also I think what I got from today was really that we should really, if we're doing business with people and we're parting with money, we should do a bit more Interrogation might be a bit more heavier word, but research who you're doing business with. Maybe.
And don't be afraid of saying that you're not the right fit.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that you can't wing it these days so much, but you still have a sense of adventure. Next week's topic. You did have something you talked about.
I just actually would like to make a takeaway. If we were to investigate, like where we spend our money or receive the money, like we may be able to work out how we can cut our expenses and increase, like the revenue by targeting the right people.
Being more focused on expenditure.
Being more focused on identifying where our customers are and how we originally reached them as well.
Okay, so what topic was that?
Risk management.
We just did that topic.
I
That
know.
was his takeaway.
Oh, right.
You
Okay.
Now we've got a
listening,
full
Danny.
stop at the end of it.
Alright, that's good. Well, we finished the talk on risk management, which was a bit blurry for me today because there's so many different levels on that. So I'm trying to think of something more exciting next week. Ashley's more exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah. I like the scar.
Thank you.
I like your shirt.
Oh, gentleman today.
And your hair looks lovely.
Oh, keep them coming,
Yeah.
Helen's not here, okay?
Yes, not either.
I'd really like to know, how do we know if what we're charging and pricing is good for our customers and good for ourselves?
We sit the funny, a lady at the moment who is here occasionally on a think tank, and she's flat tack at the moment, and she went along to an accountant, and basically the accountant was going to charge $200 an hour, and somebody said, is that a good price or a bad price for an accountant? And I said, I know that lady's charging $40 an hour for her services. Now there's straight away I'm going, she's worth more than $48 an hour, and she's flat tack, and she's wondering why. And I'm going, well, $200 for an accountant. I just paid an accountant for about 2.5 hours, $500, so that's probably about right. And I also paid her $600 4 weeks earlier for more of a time. At the end of it, I already have an accountant, but I just wanted the advice from somebody, and I got the advice I want, so the money was irrelevant. So, saying in that, I mean, how do we know? I can, as soon as somebody tells me they're charging $40 an hour, I can guess that they used to work for an employer and they used to be getting paid $20, $25 an hour, and they think, oh, I'll just add 15, but realistically straight away you've got to be $60 an hour before you even think about being in business.
So is next week's topic around identifying your worth?
You've done something similar. Yeah.
Identify your already right.
Is that, yeah. Because if you divided how many hours you work by your income or your profit.
Oh, it's scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
So do you reckon something about worth, identifying your worth?
I have watched a lot of people talk about their business, like to pitch it in the last month, and they all suck. And yeah, I'm being honest, and I think that what a good topic could be is to work out, like what you do, why do you do it.
I'm not doing elevator pitches.
Well, look, I tell you what, right? Every time I ask a person what they do, and they waffle on for 10 minutes and can't sum it up in 10 words. I'm thinking, I don't think you know what you do.
Can I just ask David Clarkson to tell me what he does in 30 seconds?
Hi, my name is David Clarkson. I'm from Dynamic Communication. We build more confident, more competent, more credible communicators. So if you want some help in that direction, give us a call.
Wow.
Yeah, so if I said that to you guys next week, what would you say? Can't see hand signals on the microphone. No, thank you. Yeah, okay, well maybe I'll think about that and give it a title of some sort. Identifying your worth, describing who you are.
What's your unique point of difference?
No, I hate it.
Hate that as well.
It's a very good too, but it's critical.
Yeah. All right, thank you for today. That's us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.